don't just have egg on their face now, Brittany. They have a whole omelette. So we're done, Harry. The door is slammed shut. Indeed, I'd be happy if you never came back to this country again.
Prince Harry has finally returned to Britain. But before the visit could even get properly underway, the whole trip seemed to spiral into chaos.
Even by Harry and Meghan standards, this is a disaster. This is an utter disaster.
Meghan was nowhere beside him when he landed, even though reports kept suggesting she and the children might still join him later. Then came the biggest twist. Harry's team said he had accepted an offer to stay at Buckingham Palace. But only a few hours later, palace sources pushed back, saying he would not be staying there after all. One side claimed the offer had been accepted. The other insisted Harry had waited too long.
Even when they said your time's run out because of security and cleaning, then his team still released a statement saying he was staying there. What's the boy on, man?
And just like that, instead of talking about Invictus, veterans, or even a possible reunion with King Charles, everyone was asking the exact same thing. How did Harry arrive in Britain without even knowing where he would stay?
It's on the front page of the biggest selling newspaper in the UK, and that's what it's all about. The way that it's been handled is purely about making sure that everything he does and says, and it's all part of the brand, keeps them current. Will they, won't they be part of Buckingham Palace, be at Buckingham Palace? I feel sorry for the king with this because he's been played, I think.
This was supposed to be a carefully organized royal return. Instead, it quickly turned into another Sussex drama before Harry had even finished his first official engagement. And Meghan's uncertain travel plans only made the headlines grow even louder.
She, of course, Madam Nightmare, she's not coming to London because it's not safe, but it's safe to go to either Birmingham for the Invictus launch or to go to Northamptonshire to see Diana's grave. So who made that decision? That if they're going to be allegedly under pressure or attacked or whatever, who says that they're not? It's ridiculous.
For several days, the reports kept changing almost every hour. First, there was speculation that Meghan, Archie, and Lilibet would travel with Harry. Then the story shifted, suggesting Harry would arrive alone while his family joined him later. Some reports even claimed Meghan could appear at Invictus-related events outside London. Others suggested the children might visit locations connected to Princess Diana and the Spencer family.
Sideshow freak show that is Sussex land at this point. Harry and Meghan are just the sideshow freak attraction of the monarchy, but unfortunately, they kind of tend to drag the headlines and drag the family into their melodrama. And the only way for the family to avoid that, the British royal family, is to just cut them off and set them loose.
Nothing seemed locked in. Harry's official schedule continued moving ahead, but the private family plans appeared to change again and again. So when he arrived by himself, it did not automatically mean Meghan had ruled out coming. But it did mean Harry had stepped into Britain alone, right as a fresh dispute with the palace exploded around him.
The truth of the matter is, hopefully the king will wise up, because nothing that this couple do, separately or together, ever leads me to think that there isn't some motive behind it, or there's a camera crew behind a tree, or they're trying to get a deal, Rob. Do you know what I mean?
Then came the Buckingham Palace update. A report claimed Harry had accepted King Charles's long-standing invitation to stay inside a royal residence. The story instantly looked like a huge breakthrough.
The psychodrama, will he, won't he, should he, shan't he? I don't even understand, sorry, I want to put it out there, why he would even contemplate wanting to stay with his kids or not in a house that symbolises an institution that he and his wife called racist, for Christ's sake.
After years of public tension, Harry would reportedly be sleeping inside the symbolic heart of the monarchy. He would be close to his father. He would be staying in one of the safest locations in the country. And if Meghan and the children arrived later, the visit could suddenly become the biggest royal reunion seen in years.
The king this morning said, hell no. Hell no. The door to Buckingham Palace is slammed in your face, Harry, and Meghan too.
For a brief moment, everything almost looked too good to be true. Then, the palace poured cold water on the entire story. According to palace sources, Harry had not accepted the offer before the deadline. Reports claimed he first turned it down while weighing different security arrangements. Then, after the deadline had already passed, he reportedly changed his mind and tried to accept.
Any hopes of reconciliation between the two men are now dead in the water. It's my understanding that King Charles is furious and insulted.
By then, officials allegedly told him it was too late because the staffing, hospitality, and security preparations could no longer be arranged on such short notice. Harry's side was reportedly frustrated. Palace sources sounded completely worn out, and the media was suddenly left with two very different versions of the same story.
Harry and his team are a mess and a disaster, and it is perfectly appropriate for Charles to just tell him no. Look, we gave you plenty of time and you couldn't come to a decision and you kind of decide to accept last minute. And you know what? We have other plans. We have a life. Our life does not revolve around you and your needs and your drama and your toxicity and everything like that.
So, was this really just about preparing a room? Buckingham Palace is enormous. It has hundreds of rooms and is protected every hour of every day. So to many people, the explanation sounded hard to believe. Surely the king's own son could be given somewhere to stay inside such a massive building? But Buckingham Palace is not a hotel. It is also going through major renovation work and is not operating like a normal family home right now. Harry's arrival would require staff, transportation, catering, security planning, controlled access, and a full operation built around someone whose every move instantly becomes front-page news. That is the official explanation.
Breaking today, King Charles may have just saved the British royal family. Now, I know some of you will say that is hyperbole, but I honestly do not believe that. If the monarch had allowed Prince Harry to stay at Buckingham Palace, despite all of his threats over the past couple of weeks, I honestly believe it could have led to the beginning of an existential crisis for the royal family.
But many royal watchers believed something else was really going on. In their view, the palace had simply run out of patience. Reports suggested Harry had been given plenty of time to make his decision. A clear answer never came. Then his team reportedly briefed that he would be staying there anyway.
And also, it's blatant rudeness. The bottom line here is, if any of my kids said, "Oh, they're going to come and stay with," if my son said he's going to come and stay with me, he'll let me know.
Yeah.
It's just how well you're brought up. You don't. If I offer, say, "Oh, yeah, you can stay," and then nobody responds, then the chances are that they're not going to come.
Absolutely.
So,
Only hours later, palace sources publicly contradicted that version. Whatever happened behind closed doors, the outcome made the royal household look confused. Harry's team appear unprepared, and the entire visit feel completely chaotic. And this is where Meghan becomes impossible to leave out. Because whether she eventually arrives or not, reports suggested her possible involvement shaped the conversation from the very beginning.
If my dad, who was not here, was ill, I wouldn't... Why announce it in the papers? Why not just go and see him? This whole debacle is for publicity. And here's something Kinsey Schofield has been saying for months. 2 words. Thomas Markle. If it's about your grandchildren seeing their grandparents, you've left a man in a hospital and you haven't had words with him for however many years.
Harry was not just deciding where he would stay. He was also trying to figure out whether Meghan and the children could travel safely, whether they would remain outside London, and whether bringing them into a royal residence would create even more attention. The surprising part is that staying at Buckingham Palace seemed like it could have solved at least part of that problem.
For example, Harry's saying, when I'm in London, I'll be on my own, but I might take Megs and the kids up to Birmingham. I mean, it's one country. These that he's worried about, and the stalkers, although I would have thought Harry's stalker has had enough now. I think she's checked out. I think even she's like, look, I'm sick of this guy. Please don't mention Harry's name again. Yes, I might be his stalker, but I am out. Does he not think that they can get on a train? Does he not think that they have access to public transport? Does he not think they could even maybe hire a car and drive from dangerous London to incredibly safe, idyllic Birmingham? Make it make sense.
Very few places in Britain are more secure. If Meghan and the children stayed there, they would already be inside the existing royal security perimeter. King Charles could finally spend time with his grandchildren. Harry could attend his engagements. Meghan could potentially join later. On paper, it looked like the most straightforward option, but reports claimed Harry believed the biggest risk was not inside the palace. It was getting in and out. The entrances were already well known. Vehicles could be followed. Photographers could gather outside.
But here's the question I've got for you. How is it that Meghan and the kids, my husband Archie and Lily, I call him H, how is it that a mansion in Portugal, which is a very wealthy part of Portugal that they live in, or that they've got this place in, how is that safer than Buckingham Palace, which is one of the most famous buildings in the world, and maybe number 2 only to the White House as the most secure?
And once reports revealed Buckingham Palace was being considered, Harry was said to believe the location had become far too public. That raised an awkward question. If keeping everything private was so important, why were so many details about the trip appearing in the media before Harry had even landed? The public had already heard where he might stay, when Meghan could arrive, where the children might visit, which royal residences were under consideration, and even how his security team was reportedly evaluating different travel routes.
It puts him in the perfect position that I've said I believe he's trying to be in since day one, which is villainizing his father and being the victim. Again, Harry's always the victim.
For someone who has repeatedly argued that publicity can create security concerns, the amount of information surrounding this visit was remarkable. Some reports even claimed that selected journalists were receiving detailed briefings from people connected to the Sussex communications team. If those reports were accurate, it created an obvious contradiction. Harry's side argued that too much public information could put the family at risk, yet details about their movements were still reportedly being shared behind the scenes. So, who was actually creating the security concerns?
They are middle-aged teenagers, right?
Oh my
That's, this is what they are. No, but this is exactly what they are. The way that they react, the pettiness, the shallowness, the superficiality, the nonsensical issues about which they get upset. This is the sort of stuff you expect from 16-year-old girls, this sort of behavior, and we're getting it from middle-aged people.
Was information coming from palace sources? Was the Sussex team trying to shape the public narrative? Or had both sides become stuck in another briefing battle, where every private disagreement quickly turned into front-page news? Whatever the real answer, Meghan's name stayed right at the center of the speculation. She did not arrive in Britain with Harry at the start of the visit, but reports continued leaving the door open for her to join him later, especially at events outside London.
Absolutely ridiculous, and it's his own doing, and also his wife's doing.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, his wife's fallen out with her family, and Harry's now fallen out with his family.
Well, I'd like to say one thing to you, 2 words, and Kinsey said it for a month. Thomas Markle, if you're so concerned with your grandchildren seeing that their grandfather, try your father, or is it because Harry's father's the King of England?
That meant the story could flip again at any moment. One photo of Meghan arriving in Britain would instantly change the entire narrative. It would mark her first major return in years, raise fresh talk about a possible meeting with King Charles, and spark a massive media frenzy. And that is exactly why some critics began questioning whether all the uncertainty was working in the Sussexes' favor.
He told the children they could come, and they're so excited. Again, positioning King Charles as the bad guy, because Harry's father of the year. He wants to bring the kids over because the kids really want to see the UK. But, you know, if things don't work out, it's because of his mean dad. And that's just not reality.
Every new rumor created another wave of headlines. Meghan might come. Meghan might stay away. The children could arrive later. They could remain elsewhere in Europe. They might visit the Spencer family. They could appear at Invictus. Nothing had been confirmed, yet the constant speculation kept the Sussexes dominating the news cycle day after day.
The only reason they want that is because of relevance, isn't it? Because the brand's on its backside in America, and being seen in a royal residence with the old Netflix cameras looks good. What else?
So was this simply a family trying to work through difficult security decisions? Or had all the uncertainty become part of the public story itself? Meghan's broader public strategy made those questions even harder to ignore. While Harry has consistently spoken about security, privacy, and the risks that come with intense media attention, Meghan has continued building her public brand through carefully chosen photographs, social media posts, product launches, and planned public appearances.
The biggest problem for me will be her chirping away in his ear. She doesn't want to come to London. What, because the royal family is racist? Well, don't come at all. But I do want to see the king, because probably I would like some clickbait. But you're not going to... London's not safe, but going to Althorpe to see the Diana, bless her, late, great Diana Spencer's grave, that is acceptable.
Harry's message has often focused on stepping back from the spotlight. Meghan's business success relies on staying visible. Those two very different approaches were suddenly colliding during the same visit. There was another reason royal watchers kept bringing Meghan back into the discussion. A return to Britain would never be treated as an ordinary appearance. It would immediately reconnect her public image with the monarchy, the one connection that still attracts more attention than any lifestyle campaign or business launch.
Why would you want to stay, if you're Meghan and Harry, in the ceremonial symbol home of the royal family that you've labelled racist? Well, in my opinion, only because their brand is failing massively and they want to be they need to be attached photographs in America with the royal family.
From the Sussexes' point of view, they're desperate to sort of enhance their royal connections, and staying at Buckingham Palace would have been part of that.
Even a short appearance alongside Harry, King Charles, or at an Invictus event would dominate headlines and photographs around the world. That is why some critics questioned whether Meghan was truly reluctant to return, or whether her team was simply waiting for the moment that would attract the biggest reaction. There has been no public confirmation of any planned strategy, but the ongoing uncertainty continued to fuel that speculation. The longer nobody knew what would happen next, the more attention any eventual decision seemed likely to receive.
He wants self-importance. You didn't want anything to do with the monarchy, man. So stop wanting the stuff that comes with it when you're not putting in the hard yards and working for it.
If Meghan eventually arrives, cameras will track her every move. If she stays away, people will keep asking why Harry is once again facing Britain on his own. Either outcome creates another major headline, and both keep the spotlight firmly on Meghan. But the palace drama became even more complicated because of Harry's court case. Harry arrived in Britain while waiting for a major ruling in his legal battle against Associated Newspapers, the publisher of the Daily Mail and Mail on Sunday.
Imagine Harry wins or loses this court case and does either the defeat, the defiant, angry speech, or the victory lap outside of Buckingham Palace, and using the king's home and that landmark, that staple, for whatever it is, whether it's a bitter tirade or if he wanted to gloat. That just can't happen, Kevin.
Harry has accused the publisher of using unlawful methods to obtain information about his private life. The publisher has denied those allegations. The timing could hardly have been more awkward for the palace. Imagine if Harry had been staying at Buckingham Palace when the judgment was handed down. If the ruling went his way, he could have made a victory statement while living inside the king's official residence. If the decision went against him, he could have responded from that exact same location.
Harry is no longer a member of this institution in the way that he used to be, and he would take advantage of that opportunity. He would use that platform. He would use that beautiful building to stand there and bark.
Either way, Buckingham Palace would instantly become linked to a legal dispute involving the British press. Harry is no longer a working royal, but images of him walking into Buckingham Palace would still carry enormous symbolism. Many people could see it as a sign of royal support, royal protection, or renewed closeness to the monarchy, even if King Charles had absolutely nothing to do with the court case.
Charles should not be having to deal with this constant nonsense, this total hysteria, this embarrassment of a son when he is conducting his service for the British public, for the Commonwealth, while undergoing treatment.
That is why some reports suggested the upcoming judgment may have made palace officials even more uneasy about the arrangement. Harry's team reportedly challenged that explanation. They argued the palace already knew when the court ruling was expected, so why make the offer in the first place? Why keep the discussions going, only for the accommodation to reportedly disappear after Harry decided to accept?
Thank God, for once Charles puts his foot down and says no.
Once again, there were two sides, two completely different stories, and no clear answer. And right in the middle of it all stood King Charles. For years, reports have suggested the king hopes to maintain some kind of relationship with Archie and Lilibet.
He's using his children as emotional blackmail on his father. His plan, what his critics say, is that his plan all along was to say to his dad, hey, Dad, I'm going to bring Archie and Lilibet over to Britain and you can see them for the first time in 4 years. How you've missed them. Won't that be wonderful? Charles, yeah, great. Why don't you stay at Buckingham Palace while you're here? That'll be fantastic. And then Harry turns around and says, yeah, but of course, you've got to organise me the armed police protection.
He has spent very little time with them, and this visit to Britain could have created a rare opportunity for a private family reunion. That is exactly why the possibility of Meghan and the children arriving later remained such an important part of the story. But Charles is not just Harry's father, he is also the monarch. He cannot simply instruct the government to give Harry the security arrangements he wants. Those decisions go through official government processes.
He's been using those kids as emotional blackmail, trying to get Charles to stick his nose in and change that decision just so he can get to see his grandchildren.
Harry has often appeared hopeful that his father could somehow influence the outcome, but any visible involvement from the king could raise serious constitutional and political concerns. That left King Charles in an almost impossible position. As a father, he may want to spend time with his son and grandchildren, but as king, he cannot allow private family matters to influence government decisions.
I think this whole debacle is an example of why Harry just needs to be cut off completely from the British monarchy. He's not in the line of succession, neither are his children. He has no place, he has no purpose, he has no future here in the British monarchy, and this needs to be done.
After years of interviews, public accusations, books, legal battles, and reported private conversations becoming public, even a quiet family meeting could carry risks. What would stay private? What might appear in the headlines? Could one conversation turn into another public dispute only days later? Some reports even suggested Charles was not prepared to rearrange his schedule for a last-minute meeting with Harry alone. The king already had official engagements and private commitments.
The king has made the decision that if Harry does not bring the children over, he will not make any changes in his diary to just see Harry for a one-on-one meeting with Harry if Harry chooses to not bring the children.
Palace sources described the situation as exhausting and reportedly made it clear there would be no sudden changes simply because Harry's plans had changed again. To many people, that sounded like a clear message. If Meghan and the children arrived, Charles might have a deeply personal reason to make time for them. But if Harry came alone after weeks of uncertainty, reports suggested the king was far less willing to cancel everything at the last minute.
Freak show is the right word, Brittany. And that is why I am so angry today. Because he's acting like an out-of-control Z-list celebrity who a manager or an agent or a PR would be saying, go to rehab. Like, shut up, go to rehab. You're destroying your own career. But this is not just some showbiz career. We're talking about Brittany. This is the future of the British royal family.
So was the palace drawing a firm line? Or was Charles quietly signaling that the days of last-minute royal access had come to an end? The situation also raised bigger questions about Harry's real objective. Was he simply in Britain to support Invictus? Was he hoping to repair his relationship with his father?
I think it's all to do with the publicity and to make sure that he has got some currency for his brand.
Was he trying to reinforce his concerns about security in Britain? Or would this visit end up reinforcing the idea that the palace had turned him away once again? Because once the accommodation story exploded, Harry found himself in a very familiar position. He appeared disappointed, publicly isolated, and once again in conflict with the very institution he has repeatedly said he hopes to reconcile with. The more he speaks about reconciliation, the more new conflict seems to appear around him.
Harry needs to start to take a long, hard look at himself, but I'm not sure he's capable. That's the problem. And it's just gone on. And finally, I think the royal household just snapped and said, enough's enough.
And Meghan's possible arrival later only adds another twist. If she joins Harry after the palace dispute, will she be stepping into a long-awaited family reunion or walking straight into an even bigger royal showdown? If she never arrives, will Harry's team argue that the security arrangements or palace decisions made the visit impossible? Either way, attention could once again shift back toward the royal household. That is why many critics believe the palace is becoming increasingly cautious.
Finally refused to be pushed around by Harry and indulge in the constant state of chaos amongst this ridiculous accusation that they asked him to stay. He said no.
For Harry, what's going on is just ridiculous. What Harry's behaviour around this. It's such a soap opera, a mess. And it's all his own doing.
What began as a simple accommodation offer turned into days of dramatic headlines. A possible family reunion became a public disagreement. An Invictus visit became another debate about royal privilege. And what should have remained a private family matter suddenly became an international media spectacle. Meanwhile, the very reason Harry had come to Britain was almost completely overshadowed.
Well, hey, I'll tell you who else. Let me tell you who else is seething right now, Kevin.
Yeah.
The Invictus leadership. This trip was supposed to be about the veterans. This trip was supposed to be a kickoff to the 1 year in Birmingham for the Invictus Games.
Invictus was supposed to be the main focus. Harry was preparing for events connected to the Birmingham Games. The spotlight should have been on wounded and injured service personnel, the competitors, and the future of the organization he helped create. Instead, the headlines centered on one question after another. Where would Harry sleep? Would Meghan arrive? Would the children come? Would King Charles see them? Had Harry accepted the palace offer?
The king doesn't need this crap, excuse my French, does he? He doesn't need it.
Harry is just desperate for relevance now, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's going to fade away and disappear unless he can create more drama, make himself relevant, and get another series on.
But
Netflix
does he
or
not?
whatever he
But
wants.
does he not know? I mean, you'd agree with this, Belly. The more people aren't going, oh, poor Harry. They're going, you're just playing games, man. The world is. You know this, Rupert. Matt knows this. I know it. There's real things happening in the world, and people just go, you entitled, arrogant. That's what they think.
Had the palace pulled it back? Was security really the issue? Was the court case making everything harder? Or had the king simply reached his limit? The Sussex drama had completely taken over the visit before the real work had even started. And that may have been the biggest setback of all. Every time Harry returns to Britain, he says he wants the spotlight to stay on important causes. Yet somehow the same cycle keeps happening. Security disputes, palace briefings, family tensions, endless questions about Meghan, conflicting reports, and another opportunity for reconciliation buried beneath fresh royal drama.
Now, this is a hot mess, and it demonstrates once again that whenever Harry and Meghan are involved in any public activity, it always ends in bad headlines and misery.
Harry may have arrived alone, but Meghan's presence was felt throughout the entire story. The possibility of her arrival remained one of the biggest talking points. Her relationship with the palace influenced the atmosphere. Her absence changed how many people viewed the visit. And if she eventually arrives, the entire narrative could shift once again.
So for Harry, this is just another example of his stupidity.
Right now, Harry is in Britain without royal accommodation, without a confirmed family reunion, and without any certainty that King Charles will change his schedule to meet with him. What was meant to look like a fresh start has quickly begun to feel like another setback. But this story is still unfolding. Meghan could still travel to Britain later. The children could still appear at events outside London. Charles could still agree to a private meeting. And the palace could still find a way to keep this visit from turning into an even bigger public controversy. But one thing already seems impossible to ignore. Before Harry had the chance to fully explain why he returned, the palace and the Sussexes were already clashing over what had happened behind closed doors. And the harder both sides appeared to push their version of events, the more chaotic the entire situation became,